I gave my son my business, my name, and every brick of the life I built. But the night I walked into his mansion, the mansion that used to be mine, he slapped me across the face in front of his servants and said, "Throw this old beggar onto the trash pile. He's dirtying my guests." And when the guards dragged me out, he told everyone I had stolen everything from him, and tonight he was taking it back. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and drop a comment, telling us where you're listening from. I still remember the sound of that slap. Not the pain, pain fades, but the sound, that sharp, humiliating crack that echoed through the marble hall like a gunshot. It wasn't just skin meeting skin. It was 30 years of sacrifice collapsing in a single moment. It was the sound of a father realizing his son no longer saw him as a father at all. I didn't raise my hand to my cheek. I didn't step back. I didn't even blink. I just stood there, staring at him, wondering how the boy I once carried on my shoulders had grown into a man capable of hitting me like I was a stray dog that wandered into his yard. His servants froze. One of them, a young man with wide eyes, took a half step forward like he wanted to help me, then stopped when my son shot him a look that could have cut stone. "Did you not hear me?" my son said, his voice cold, controlled, dripping with the kind of arrogance only inherited wealth can produce. "Throw him out, now." 2 security guards moved toward me, big men, strong, the kind of men I used to hire to protect him when he was a teenager. Now they were here to throw me out of a house I once owned. I didn't resist. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I just let them take my arms, one on each side, and drag me across the polished floor. My shoes scraped against the marble. My breath echoed in my ears. My son turned his back before I even reached the door. As they pulled me through the hallway, I caught glimpses of the life I had built for him. The chandelier I imported from Italy. The staircase I designed myself. The paintings I bought on business trips, thinking he'd appreciate them someday. The dining table where we once celebrated his graduation. The living room where he took his first steps. All of it blurred past me like a cruel slideshow. When the guards reached the front door, they didn't open it gently. They shoved it wide, dragged me across the threshold, and threw me onto the cold stone steps like I was a bag of trash. I hit the ground hard, my knees scraping against the rough surface. The door slammed behind me with a finality that felt like a coffin lid closing. For a moment, I just sat there. The night air was cold, sharp, biting at my skin. I could hear laughter inside the house. His guests, his friends, the people he wanted to impress. They had no idea what had just happened. Or maybe they did. Maybe he told them. Maybe he wanted them to see. I looked up at the mansion. The lights glowed warm behind the windows. Shadows moved inside, people drinking, talking, living. And there I was, sitting on the steps like a beggar outside a palace. I tried to stand, but my legs shook. Not from the fall, from something deeper, something older, something I didn't want to name yet. I finally pushed myself up and walked down the driveway. The gravel crunched under my feet. The gate at the end of the path loomed ahead, tall and iron and locked. The guards followed me until I reached it, then stopped, watching me like I might try to sneak back in. I turned around one last time. The house stood there, massive and beautiful and cold, a monument to everything I had given him, and everything he had taken. I walked through the gate and onto the sidewalk. The street was quiet. A few cars passed by, their headlights washing over me like I was invisible. Maybe I was. I don't know how long I stood there. Minutes, hours. Time didn't feel real. All I could think about was the look on his face when he slapped me. Not anger, not frustration, just disgust. Like I was something beneath him, something he needed to get rid of. I started walking. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed to move. My feet carried me down the street, past houses I used to know, past trees I planted years ago, past memories I didn't want to revisit. As I walked, my mind drifted back to the day I signed everything over to him. The business, the properties, the accounts, the name. I did it because I thought it would make him proud. I thought it would give him a life I never had. I thought it would show him how much I trusted him. He cried that day, hugged me, told me he'd make me proud. I guess people change, or maybe they don't. Maybe they just reveal who they always were. I reached a small park a few blocks away. There was a bench under a street lamp. I sat down, my body aching, my heart heavier than it had ever been. The night was quiet, except for the distant hum of traffic. A stray dog wandered by, sniffed the air, then trotted off. I leaned back and closed my eyes. For a moment, I let myself feel everything. The humiliation, the betrayal, the loss. It washed over me like a wave, threatening to pull me under. But then something else rose inside me. Something colder, something sharper, something I hadn't felt in years. Resolve. I opened my eyes and stared at the ground. The gravel, the dirt, the cracks in the pavement. I had started my life here, on the ground, with nothing. No money, no connections, no name. I built everything from scratch, brick by brick, deal by deal, sacrifice by sacrifice. And now I was back where I started. But this time, I wasn't young. I wasn't hungry. I wasn't dreaming. I was angry. Not the kind of anger that burns hot and fades fast. The kind that settles deep in your bones. The kind that sharpens your mind. The kind that makes you see the world with a clarity you didn't know you had left. I stood up from the bench. My legs were steady now. My breath was calm. My heart was cold. I started walking again, this time with purpose. I reached the main road and flagged down a taxi. The driver looked at me through the window, hesitated for a moment, probably because of the dirt on my clothes, the scrape on my cheek, but then unlocked the door. "Where to?" he asked. I gave him an address. Not my home, not my office, not anywhere he'd expect. He nodded and started driving. As the city lights blurred past the window, I thought about my son, about the man he had become, about the lies he told his guests, about the way he said I had stolen everything from him, about the way he said he was taking it back. He didn't know the truth, not the real truth, not the truth I had buried years ago to protect him, to protect us, to protect the family name. But he was about to learn. The taxi pulled up to a small building on the edge of town. Old, worn, forgotten. The kind of place no one would look twice at. I paid the driver and stepped out. The door creaked when I pushed it open. The lights flickered. The air smelled like dust and old paper. I walked down the hallway to a room at the end. The door was locked. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a key I hadn't used in years. The lock clicked open. Inside, the room was filled with boxes, files, documents, records, the real history of my business, the real story of how everything was built, the deals I made, the risks I took, the sacrifices I hid, the secrets I kept. I walked to the back of the room and opened a metal cabinet. Inside were folders labeled with dates, names, numbers. Some of them were mine, some weren't. I pulled out a folder with my son's name on it. I opened it, and there it was. The truth. The thing I had protected him from his entire life. The thing he had no idea existed. The thing that would destroy him if it ever came out. I closed the folder and held it in my hands. He thought he had taken everything from me. He had no idea what everything really was. I walked out of the room, locked the door behind me, and stepped back into the night. The air felt different now, lighter, colder, sharper. I wasn't going to beg for his respect. I wasn't going to fight for his love. I wasn't going to try to fix what he had broken. I was going to show him what it really meant to lose everything, and I was going to do it slowly, quietly, publicly. I started walking back toward the main road, the folder tucked under my arm, my steps steady, my mind clear. He thought tonight was the end of my story. He was wrong. Tonight was the beginning of his, and I was going to make sure he never forgot it. Tonight was the beginning of his. I walked down that dimly lit street with the folder tucked under my arm, feeling the weight of it like a second heartbeat. The night air was cold, but not the kind that bites. It was the kind that wakes you up, the kind that makes you see things clearly. I wasn't shaking anymore. I wasn't confused. I wasn't broken. I was awake. A taxi passed by, its headlights sweeping across my face, but I didn't raise my hand. I wanted the walk. I needed it. Every step felt like I was shedding something. Humiliation, disappointment, the last pieces of the father I had tried to be. Not because I stopped loving him, but because he had stopped being someone who could receive that love. I reached the main road and finally flagged down a cab. The driver glanced at me through the mirror, probably wondering why an older man in a wrinkled shirt was out this late carrying a folder, like it was a bomb. Maybe it was. In a way, it was more dangerous than one. "Where to?" he asked. I gave him the address of my old office building. Not the headquarters, the original one. The first building I ever rented. The place where the company was born. The place my son had never cared to visit. The cab rolled through the city, and I watched the lights blur past. I thought about the night he was born. I remembered holding him tiny and warm, his whole life ahead of him. I remembered promising myself I'd give him everything I never had. And I did. God help me, I did. But giving a man everything doesn't make him grateful. Sometimes it makes him hollow. We reached the building. It looked smaller than I remembered. Older, but it still stood, still solid, still mine in a way nothing else was anymore. I paid the driver and stepped out. The street was quiet. A single street lamp flickered overhead. I walked to the door, unlocked it with the old brass key I still kept on my chain, and stepped inside. The air smelled like dust and memories, the kind of smell that clings to you. I walked down the hallway, past the old break room, past the office where I used to sleep on the couch during the early years, past the wall where I'd once taped my son's drawings because I couldn't afford real art. I reached my old office. The door creaked when I pushed it open. The room was empty except for a desk, a chair, and a filing cabinet. I sat down, placed the folder on the desk, and opened it. Inside were documents my son had never seen. Documents I had hidden to protect him. Documents that told a story he didn't know existed. His mother, her debts, her choices, her betrayal, and the truth about why I built the company the way I did. He thought I stole from him. He thought I took what was his. He thought I owed him everything. But the truth was, I had saved him from a life he never knew he almost had. I closed the folder and leaned back in the chair. The room felt smaller now, or maybe I felt bigger. Maybe I was finally stepping into the version of myself I had buried for too long. My phone buzzed. I looked at the screen. His name, I let it ring. It buzzed again, and again, and again. Finally, I answered. His voice came through the speaker, sharp and frantic. "Where are you?" I didn't answer. "Dad, listen. Whatever happened tonight, I didn't mean—" "You meant every word," I said quietly. Silence. Then he exhaled shakily. "People are asking questions. The guests, they're talking. Someone recorded what happened. It's online." I closed my eyes for a moment. "Good." "Good?" he snapped. "Dad, this is serious. They're saying I abused you. They're saying I stole the company. They're saying I'm a fraud." "You are," I said. He went silent again. I could hear him breathing, fast, uneven. "Dad, please, I need you to come back. We need to talk." "No," I said. "You need to listen." He didn't speak. "You think tonight was about a slap," I said. "It wasn't. It was about who you've become and who you think I am." "I know who you are," he said quickly. "You're my father." "No," I said. "I'm the man you threw out of your house like garbage." He inhaled sharply. "I was angry. I was drunk. You were honest," I said. He didn't deny it. I stood up from the chair and walked to the window. The street outside was empty. Quiet. Peaceful. "You told your guests I stole from you," I said. "You told them I took what was yours. You told them you were taking it back." I didn't mean. You meant it, I said again. And now you're going to learn what it feels like when someone actually takes something from you. His voice cracked. Dad, what are you going to do? I didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, I said, meet me tomorrow, noon, at the old office. Why there? Because that's where the truth lives. He hesitated. Will you help me fix this? No, I said, but I'll show you how it breaks. I hung up. The room felt colder now. The folder sat on the desk, its edges worn, its contents sharp enough to cut a man's life in half. I picked it up and walked out of the office, locking the door behind me. The hallway felt longer this time, or maybe I was walking slower. Maybe I wanted to feel every step. When I stepped outside, the sun was just beginning to rise. The sky was a pale gray, the kind that promises a storm. I started walking. Tomorrow he would learn the truth, and the truth would destroy him. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. I sat in my old office chair, the folder resting on the desk like a loaded weapon, and watched the sky shift from black to gray to the pale blue of early morning. My body was tired, but my mind was sharper than it had been in years. Every memory, every sacrifice, every mistake, everything was suddenly clear. By noon I was standing outside the old building again. The sun was high, the air warm, the street quiet. I could hear my own heartbeat, steady and calm. I wasn't nervous, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was ready. At exactly 12 o'clock, a black SUV pulled up to the curb. The door opened and my son stepped out. He wasn't wearing the confidence he usually carried like armor. His shoulders were tense, his eyes restless, his jaw tight. He looked like a man walking into a courtroom where he wasn't sure if he was the witness or the accused. He approached me slowly. "Dad," he said, his voice low. "Can we talk inside?" I didn't answer. I just turned and walked toward the door. He followed. Inside, the building felt even smaller with him in it. He looked around like he was seeing it for the first time. The peeling paint, the old carpet, the flickering lights. This place wasn't impressive. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't a mansion or a penthouse or a boardroom. It was the truth. I led him to my old office. He hesitated at the doorway, then stepped inside. I closed the door behind us. The folder sat on the desk. His eyes went straight to it. "What is that?" he asked. "The truth," I said. He swallowed. "About what?" "About everything." He didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe. I walked to the desk, picked up the folder, and held it in my hands. "You think I stole from you?" I said. "You think I took what was yours? You think I built my life on your future?" He didn't deny it. "You think I owe you everything," I continued. "But you don't know what I saved you from." He frowned. "Saved me? From what?" I opened the folder and pulled out the first document. I handed it to him. He took it slowly, his eyes scanning the page. His face tightened. This is Mom's name." "Yes." "And these numbers, these debts, what is this?" "The truth," I said again. "Your mother wasn't who you think she was. She wasn't the saint you built in your head. She made choices, bad ones, dangerous ones, choices that would have destroyed you before you ever had a chance to grow." He shook his head. No, she wouldn't." "She did," I said, "and I spent years cleaning up after her, paying off debts she hid, covering mistakes she made, protecting you from the consequences." He stared at the paper like it was written in a language he didn't understand. I handed him another document, then another, and another, each one heavier than the last, each one a piece of the life he never knew he almost had. He sank into the chair, the papers trembling in his hands. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you were a child," I said, "and children deserve to believe their parents are good. I wanted you to grow up with hope, not fear. I wanted you to have a chance at a life better than the one you were born into." He looked up at me, his eyes wet. "So you built the company to pay off her debts?" "I built the company to protect you," I said. "Every deal. Every risk, every sacrifice. It wasn't for me. It was for you. He looked down again, his breath shaking. I didn't know. No, I said. You didn't want to know. You wanted to believe you were the victim, that I was the villain, that everything I did was to hurt you. He closed his eyes. I continued. You said I stole from you, but the truth is I gave you everything, and you threw me out of the house I built with the same hands that protected you. He opened his eyes slowly. Dad, I'm sorry. I shook my head. No, you're not sorry. Not yet. You're scared. There's a difference. He didn't argue. I walked to the window and looked out at the street. Last night, when you slapped me in front of your servants, when you called me a beggar, when you told them to throw me out like trash, you didn't just humiliate me. You revealed yourself. He lowered his head. You showed the world who you really are, I said, and now the world is watching. He looked up sharply. What do you mean? I turned back to him. The video, the guests, the staff, the neighbors, the internet. Everyone saw what you did. Everyone heard what you said, and they're not going to forget it. He stood up suddenly. Dad, please. No, I said. You need to hear this. He froze. You wanted to take everything from me, I said, but you forgot something important. What? He whispered. You can't take what you don't understand. He blinked. You thought the company was money, I said. You thought the mansion was power. You thought the name was yours to own. But the company was built on trust. The mansion was built on sacrifice. And the name was built on respect. He swallowed hard. And you lost all three in one night. He sank back into the chair, his hands covering his face. I walked to the desk, picked up the folder, and placed it in front of him. This is yours now, I said. Not because you deserve it, but because you need to understand what it cost. He didn't look up. I continued. You're going to face the board, the investors, the employees, the public, and you're going to tell them the truth. He looked up slowly. What truth? That you were wrong, I said. That you lied. That you acted out of pride. That you humiliated your father because you couldn't face your own failures. He shook his head. Dad, they'll destroy me. No, I said. You destroyed yourself. I'm just giving you the chance to rebuild. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he whispered, Will you stand with me? I took a breath. No, I said. Not this time. His face fell. You need to stand alone, I said. You need to feel the weight of your choices. You need to earn back what you threw away. He nodded slowly, tears slipping down his cheeks. I walked to the door and opened it. Go, I said. Face what you created. He stood up, wiped his face, and walked past me. He paused at the doorway. Dad, I don't know if I can fix this. I looked at him. Then learn from it. He nodded once, then walked down the hallway and out of the building. I watched him go. When the door closed behind him, the room felt quiet, still, heavy. I sat down in the chair he had just left. The papers he'd touched were still warm. The air still carried the weight of everything that had been said. I leaned back and closed my eyes. For the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't expected. Peace. Not because he apologized, not because he understood, not because he changed, but because I finally let go of the version of him I had been holding onto. The boy who needed me, the man who betrayed me, the son I loved, the stranger he became, all of them. I stood up, walked out of the office, and stepped into the sunlight. The day was bright, warm, quiet. I didn't look back. Some stories don't end with forgiveness. Some don't end with revenge. Some end with truth. And sometimes that's enough. If this story stayed with you, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching.